Um, SEQ stands for Spiritual Emotional Intelligence Profile. At this point, we don't have a full assessment yet. And I want to make some things clear. When we talk about spiritual, we're not talking about the spiritual as far as a faith practice. It's not designed to have anything to do with a particular faith practice. It's designed to talk about connections. If somebody does have a faith practice and a connection with a higher power, the SEQ is a great tool to use, but it's not a prerequisite, and it's not really designed for that. So when we talk about spiritual, it talks about connection. And so we look at it that way. The reason that we came about with this profile, Hanley, was so that we could go a little step further than some of the other tools that we use that 6 Seconds provides. It takes it a little bit deeper in a direction that the regular emotional intelligence profiles and assessments don't go. And we've found that it's very useful as an add-on to doing that. So that's why we do this. I'm sure you're familiar with the other tools as a preferred partner. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, if that's okay.
Please.
And I'm going to put your profile up so that we can look at it. And the way the profile is set up is it's in several different sections. And we're going to start with the top section first, the alignment. What we're looking at in alignment, you can see that we have different areas in there. We have what we call domains. If you look at that diagram, you'll see the circles that go around of awareness, insight, and belonging. And those domains are areas in your life that we all have. We're connected to some of them differently or more or less than others. And in this case, awareness, you can see in that circle, is how well do you connect with yourself? Do you understand who you are? Do you understand what your life goals are? Do you understand what drives you? And just a lot of different things like that. So that's awareness. And you go around the circle to belonging. And belonging is how well do you connect to the people that are close to you, your family, friends, neighbors, people you might work with. If you're out in the world doing business, how well do you connect with your clients? It's the people that you run into every day. And those people can also be the people that you might run into getting gas in your car or that kind of thing. It's the people that you're directly connected with. And then insight takes it into the whole world. It's what goes beyond all those things. Now, if you do have a faith practice, whatever that faith practice is, that's where it fits into, is in this insight domain. So you've got awareness, belonging, insight. Do you have any questions so far, Hanley?
Yeah, could you elaborate a little bit more on insight? Because here's what I've got so far is that awareness is really about connection with self. Belonging is connection with others.
Yeah.
Okay? And am I reading that insight is sort of how you're connecting with the world as a whole?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and read our definition, and if that does it. Insight is the ability to understand that beyond what can be seen or felt. It's something greater than ourselves that connects us to the larger world. So insight could include, if you're working on, helping with the pollution problems, or you see issues in other countries maybe that catch your attention about water supplies. Insight also is that part of you that does connect with a higher power. Your definition of God, to borrow from what AA uses. So it's beyond ourselves. It's beyond who you are, and it's one of those. It's hard to put it into a definite thing because it really depends on where you're at and what your beliefs are. I don't know. Did that help with that?
Yeah. And what I'm calling from that, Jeff, from you, is that how intuitive that is. Okay, that's because when you start saying beyond thinking and feel, that and you're going to but you're also saying beyond what the data might just generally present to you in black and
Yeah.
white. But how do you go beyond that to see what's deeper and what's going on?
It has a lot to do with the parts of your lives that maybe you can't explain to yourself even. Um, what it is that, when somebody asks you, why do you think this is important? A lot of times you really can't give a logical reason for why that is important to you. So that goes into that insight. It's beyond, and it's really hard to explain most of the time, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I think no, but that really helps. Yeah, I get a better sense of how you're using the word insight here.
Okay. So any other questions about the domains?
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, and then in the triangle part, you'll see uh, direction, service, and balance. And those are what we call drivers. They're the kind of things that are kind of below the surface that help you get to the result you are, or sometimes maybe hinder how you get to the result you are. So direction, there in the purple, that's how well do you connect with uh, getting to where you want to be? What is it that is important to you, and how well do you want to get there? Balance is how well do you balance all the aspects of your life. We have the normal ones, family, um, if you have a faith practice, church in this case, work, that kind of thing. How well do you balance it? And then service, it's how well do you work with other people to um, get to what the goal is, the things that you're looking at. Any questions from that, Hanley?
Well, just one, and this flips back, and this might be outside the context of this, but I'm thinking about this in terms of also the EQ assessment.
Okay.
For instance, it seems like the thing when I read through all this around the service piece for me is that just working with others, it was also the notion of a noble goal played into that service piece.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it would be working towards, I hate to use the term, but a noble end or something. So it's more
Okay.
than getting along with people.
For maybe somebody's watching this that's not familiar with the 6 seconds assessment, could you give your definition of a noble goal? Not necessarily what yours is, but how would you define a noble goal for someone? That might help.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. The way I tend to talk to people about noble goal, and the way about I think of my own, and again, it goes very much in the term of being a driver. Okay, so my noble goal is the reference to my deepest principles and purposes, to what I'm here for.
Okay, good definition. And
Yeah.
for me, just to touch on the 6 second assessment, I think the noble goal is the most important of those competencies.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir right now. I'm with you 100% on that. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a pretty good idea of the drivers and the domains, and then you've got those circles that are there around that dotted line, and the circles relate to the one that they're right above, the same color. So the purple circle relates to direction and on around. And in some cases, when somebody takes this profile, the circles will be different sizes. In your case, the circles are pretty much the same size. So I would say you are pretty balanced in those domains of awareness, belonging, insight. When I said that, how do you feel about that? Do you feel that is an accurate thing? Do you have questions?
Well, my first response to that is, because the circles are all the same size, I thought that was a generic model. I didn't get it. It was my score on, which is cool. Now that makes that makes a lot of sense to me. Okay, because now that you say that, is the way I put that model together, Jeff, is the way I sort of connect the direction, service, and balance to the outsides, to the other three there. It's sort of a Venn diagram to me.
Okay.
Where there's all those circles is who you are and how you operate, is pretty much where all those circles interconnect with each other in the center of that, which is a beautiful place to put SEQ, because that, how you operate is that.
Okay. So in other, other cases, the circles might be different sizes, and
Yeah.
this, well, that doesn't matter because yours are all the same, so I don't need to go there. So any other thoughts about that? Is this where you would like to be, or is it something that would you like to put more effort into one of them than the other at this point? Which, just like emotional intelligence, which you and I both know real well, it's okay if that changes. It's not a static thing. So would there be any changes you would like to make in this?
Well, that's a great question, because I think if I would have taken this like a couple of years ago, the answer would have been no, this is fine. I'm sort of on direction. But since I think that you're aware, I've significantly changed by my direction within my work,
Okay.
where I'm no longer taking on big projects. I basically shut down as of December. My C corporation is gone out of existence. I'm sort of operating in a way, and I'm moving towards retirement. I'm trying to figure out what that means, because that word makes no sense to me whatsoever. It's really and I like this because I'm moving towards redirection right now. So the challenge I'm in right now is probably around the directional pieces. I know what motivates me. I know what drives me. I know how to keep that in balance in my life, but I don't have the focus that I've normally had for many, many, many years. I've sort of let go of that. So my challenge right now is finding focus for my direction.
Okay. That's a good insight from your end.
Yeah.
So, like I said, once again, which we both understand that, emotional intelligence and the SEQ, you can work on areas and change it. So now the other thing that these circles are showing us is their alignment with what it is. So in your case, your service is right up next to insight, where your direction and balance, your direction is pretty much right in the middle between insight and awareness, and your balance a little bit more towards an awareness. But the one that is the most, I don't want to use the word out of alignment because that makes it sound like a bad thing, but it's not. The alignment for that is closer to insight. So your service, according to what this says, is more working towards your purpose in life. Does that agree with where you think you are or how you feel?
Yes. That
Okay.
makes perfect sense to me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then we go down to the bottom with balance. Your balance is more focused on who you are right now, and that doesn't mean in a selfish way. I mean, it could be. I don't think it is, but it's more focused on you. With what you've said and what you're feeling, is that a good reflection of where you are? That you're looking more at your own needs and wants right now.
That's sort of an interesting paradox, in as much as the answer is yes and no. So let me explain that to you. Yes,
Okay.
I am looking for that, but what I am really looking for is how I apply that for others, so I can be in service in the world, which is, not only what I'm supposed to be doing, but what makes me most happy.
Okay.
So the balance for me right now, again, is very much tied to how I bring that back into. It was in balance for a long time. It's in a really good way. It's out of balance right now. I mean, because
Okay.
I'm in some important transitions. Am I happy with my life right now? Absolutely. Are things going in a good direction? Yes. Do I need more focus and direction, specifically about how I serve in a larger sense? That's also true.
Okay. So maybe a few years ago, when you weren't thinking about this, retirement and changing your focus, do you think you could have been more over towards the belonging in that, where you were more aware of the people, or not? Your focus was more on the other people, the people you were working with and things.
Well, yeah, very, very much so. Very much so.
Okay. All
And,
right.
and and part of that has to do with the amount of time and energy I was putting into that, as opposed to it is today. You know?
Okay, so it's good awareness to look at this, and like I said earlier, the goal is not to get everything perfectly
Yeah.
centered. The goal is to figure out where you are and where you want to be. So, looking at these, do you feel that this matches what you would like to see happening for the next few
Uh,
years?
well, yeah, it does. I think that I mean, I think things are going to take their natural course with me, Jeff. And my sense is that this has just been not only going through this has been academically helpful, but right now that's very insightful of you to put it in that frame for me, because I haven't described my current situation in terms of balance before. I haven't
Okay.
seen it that way. But seeing where I am and where I'm going and what it's all about in terms of that is actually very helpful.
Okay. What I think when I look at, we talked about the noble goal. Um, I have what I call noble tasks that go along with that noble goal. So, yeah, you might be working on a noble task right now to
Uh, okay, yeah. I'm only laughing. That sounds like simply walking your talk there.
Okay. So, any questions about the alignment and any of that with this top part?
No, not at all. That was really a great explanation and very helpful for me understanding my
Okay.
place in that. Yeah.
All right. So what we'll do now is we'll go down here. What we have are what we call tiles. If you go back up and look at the circle there, then this circle is divided up into 9 what we call tiles. You could use they could be strengths, they could be competencies, but we just call them tiles in with this effort. And on the left, you'll see the 7 or the 3 of the top when you took the assessment, what you said about yourself: confidence, stability, and serenity. Uh, let's look at confidence. Why don't you take a quick look at that and give me your definition of that in your own words?
Yeah. Um, I have a very simple definition that I use with a lot with my coaching clients. Actually, we moved into there. For me, in this context, confidence is very simply moving beyond one's own self-doubt.
Okay.
And I don't know about you, but I've been struggling with self-doubt my whole life.
I think if anyone is being perfectly honest,
Yeah.
they're going to have that. If
They're
they're
going to
really,
have self-doubt, yeah. And there
yeah.
are times when, and the thing of it is that self-doubt used to be a bear in my life, and it used to scare the heck out of me. And now it's more like a parakeet.
Okay.
It's still there and it flies around the room, but I recognize it for what it is. So a lot of confidence is simply that self-belief. And where I'm still I'll be working on this till the day I die, but self-belief in somewhat of a non-egotistical way. Because see, confidence can get very egocentric very quickly.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
has.
So when I'm talking about confidence, just looking at myself and say, yeah, and being at peace and acceptance with who I am and moving forward.
Okay. So then look at stability and what is your definition of that?
Yeah. Give me a second. Yeah, I think that my definition of stability is kind of interesting because I think I actually do think stability is a bit of an illusion. Okay, in reality, I mean, in my reality, I mean, I'm living at so many levels in an incredibly dynamic world that's changing with inside me and changing outside me all the time. So, so stability but there's an anchor, there's a source within me, okay,
Okay.
that navigates that. okay, in a
Okay.
particular way. And when that source is turned on and that gyroscope is spinning in the right direction, just holding on to me like that, that's where I find stability.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's inner and outer stability. Outer
Right.
stability is probably boring. Inner stability keeps you through those exciting times.
Also, if you're looking out there in the world for stability there these days, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, there isn't any.
There's
The
not
only,
not a good place to be looking for stability these
I
days.
think the only thing that's stable is the instability that's out there.
Yeah, I think the only thing that's predictable is the unpredictability. I think you're absolutely
Okay.
right.
All right, and then serenity. Um,
Yeah.
do the same with that.
Okay. Serenity for me um, is a challenge. When I looked at these three, confidence and stability. Oh yeah, that wasn't a big deal for me. Serenity is because I do not have a particularly serene personality, and that is such a double-edged sword and has been my whole life. There's ways in which that serves me in terms of my excitement, my enthusiasm, and my drive around things, and I can be very much in the center of. But it also at times makes me a little crazy, and when I'm making myself a little crazy, I tend to be making people around me a little crazy too. Okay, and those are not serene moments. Okay, so what I'm finding, and here's something that's been very true. Just a little sidebar. I made a decision. You know, I had a major medical challenge last year with major surgeries and an infection on my bone in my foot that was pretty serious. I had multiple hospital stays and everything else, and it really affected my health for quite a while. And as I started getting better, I had put on a lot of weight. So I made a decision that this year for me was going to be about getting back in the shape I was 20 years ago. And I'm pretty
Okay.
much there. I'm pretty much there now. I've lost 30 pounds. Okay. And I'm working out every day. I am eating healthier than I have been maybe ever right now. And the result of that is that I'm finding more serenity on a day-to-day basis. So to me, there's a real connection between my physical wellness and being and my ability to be serene.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. And but to me, it's a very tentative thing. It isn't, what I know is that I can get very excited at times about stuff and sometimes not in a good way. And that's a challenge for me. And I think I've progressed on it. But again, it's one of those things that I think it's going to be something I'm going to be working on for the rest of my life. I'm working on it for this long.
I think sometimes when we talk about serenity, we think that I always struggle with the right way to say this. It's not just about being calm. You can be excited and serene, I think, at the same time,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
because the serenity comes from knowing you're doing what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
And it might be in turmoil. I've been serene with decisions. I've had the serenity about decisions that I've made, and it was turmoil around me.
Yeah.
So I think that's for me anyway. I need to remember that part of it. So
You know,
my next.
it's funny you should say that, because the truth of it is where is I am really, really good in crisis.
Okay.
I mean, in crisis situations, what I tend to do is to go to a fairly calm place,
Okay.
and I can solve problems when everything around me is getting pretty crazy.
Okay.
So
So
that's the good part for me. I never
uh,
thought about it as serenity before, but now that I think about your definition, you talk about it, that's where I find serenity.
so do you think that what you said about yourself again, your confidence and stability? Do you think that helps add to your serenity?
Well, it enables it.
Okay. Allows it to
it,
happen.
And I mean, these three, and I'm sure that all of the 9 tiles are interdependent. I read through them. I mean, they are. But these 3 particularly are incredibly interdependent with one another.
Okay.
If I'm feeling a total lack of confidence and unstable, I'm not going to be very serene.
Okay.
And on the other hand, if I find some serenity within me, it helps me be more confident and more stable. It's just one way to talk about that. But the answer to you is I see a tremendous amount of interconnection between these 3 tiles particularly.
And I think that goes back up to what we saw at the top, where you're fairly balanced in your domains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, all right. So the other thing to think about is,
I have a question for you.
okay.
Because it's funny. I just noticed the color code about the tiles are arranged according to the drivers.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I just didn't. That little light bulb just came on. I just didn't realize that before. So confidence really goes to direction, where stability and serenity really go to balance.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a lot. Boy, that I just didn't get that. That's
okay. You're a step ahead of me. That was the next thing.
I'm sorry. I didn't.
You're stealing my thunder, Hanley.
Okay.
No, that's great. No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Good, because that's the next thing I was going to point out. And I think from what you described, and I'll let you decide this, that these 3 tiles that are your 3 strongest are helping you go to that, moving more towards the insight, which is kind of what you wanted the world at large. With that thought, do you think that those are important for you?
Very, yes, I would say absolutely. But they're foundational on all of this for me.
Okay.
No.
And the other thing I was going to mention about the tiles is you mentioned there's 9 other ones. That does not mean that your 4th best tile is way below serenity. It could be just that little bit. And with the way you're balanced, I would guess if we would look at the numbers, which I guess we can do that. That's back end stuff that somebody else knows how to look at. I would guess the tiles are probably fairly equal as we go around. And the important thing to remember about that is, if let's say you're in a situation where, let me look here, one that you're not doing. You need to be more, you need to have more inspiration, and to get something done, like if it was something that is part of your noble goal of what you want to accomplish, and you need some inspiration, you can look at the definition for inspiration and work on that to inspire yourself. So these tiles are all in us. It's just in how varying degree, and like we said earlier, if you would have taken this 2 or 3 years ago, those 3 tiles might not have been your top ones.
Yes. One of the things, I just said to you, what I said is about the stability, the confidence, and the serenity are foundational. Okay. And what I've just pulled up in front of me here is I'm looking at because that handout you sent me was very helpful about the 9 tiles. And what I see is that there are different levels of abstraction. What I mean by that is there's an interdependence there, okay? And I look at the other 6 and I say, if I've got serenity, stability, and confidence, okay? That's going to, for instance, tremendously have a lot of impact on my authenticity. Okay. Yeah, or resonance are there. So there's a way that they all interplay with each other. So, I get that. Just as a little side note on that, a question for you.
Okay.
And tell me, defer it if you want to discuss this later. But my sense is getting the information, and those 3 would be helpful. Getting the information, something. For instance, like the say profile or something like that, on all 9 of them would be really nice to know.
One of the things that we're working on is this is, we were first thinking about turning this into a full assessment, like the SAY, which is the full assessment that we use at 6 seconds. But we're looking at, instead of doing that, is letting know, what competencies within the SAY, like confidence, relates to, that kind of thing. So we're just starting that project. I think that would be more useful, because one of the things that we really want to use with this tool is as a deeper dive from the SAY, so the people would already have the basic knowledge of it. So
you see, I think that's awesome. Yeah.
So
yeah.
So any questions, other questions you might have from going through this?
Did that actually know what that leads me to now is to go back through this on my own and do some more thinking.
Okay.
And to be completely candid about it, is that I'm surprised at how insightful. After looking at the data, I said, this is interesting. I wonder what he's going to say, but I'm truly surprised as how much I'm finding this to be very useful and very acceptable information.
When we developed this, working with 6 seconds to develop this, I know for myself, I was the same way. I was actually really happily surprised how much information there is on this one sheet of paper from this assessment, or profile, actually. So thank you for reinforcing that. The other thing that I always tell people when I'm doing any kind of a debrief is always look at it in a sense of curiosity. Why is it saying that? Why is it not saying? Maybe there's something that you were thinking about that didn't show up on this, so maybe why didn't that show the way I wanted it to, or the way I thought it would? So just always, have the open mind and curiosity. I normally say that at the beginning, but we got to talking, so
we got to that. That's fine. Yeah. So no, I found this very satisfying and really helpful.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to stop sharing then.
And I'm going to turn the recording off. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Hanley.